Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you for coming today. So today I'm going to talk about how to build an ecosystem, but focusing on relationships, so with the developers, but not focus on ecosystem KPI, but what it really matters. First thing first, I am checking actually if it's working. If not, I will just click. I'm Eomji, Head of Research and Operations at Incode Club. Incode Club is the education community. We focus on onboarding and training developers and accelerating the founders. And also, I studied at Technical University of Munich, and at the moment, affiliated as a guest scientist and supporting next generation of the researchers and students coming into the industry. Now, why are developers important to your ecosystem? Everyone said that developers are important, but why? Because we are building a technical product. So let's start with the foundation. So we are building a blockchain. Not every one of us, but if you're building a protocol, developers are your primary user who need to use your product and build something for end users. Think about Google Cloud, Kubernetes, those are platforms for builders, and ultimately they must use your product to build something to create the value that others can use. So blockchain is no different from those type of previous tag we were using. Without developers, your product remains unused, no apps, no users, no ecosystem. Just a bit of the difference is because of the coin, so that we feel like sometimes retail users are direct user of your chain, but unless you focus on payment system only, that's not true. And developers don't just build, they are your ambassadors, because they are the one who are going to be perhaps testing all different nitty-gritty features in your ecosystem, and then they're going to bring other users who will be perhaps a little bit tacky in the beginning, who are going to create the users who are will not realize that blockchain is behind the app and continue using that. So they are your best shot at meaningful distribution, because if you don't make them on board, at a certain point, it will be very difficult that your team itself need to build 1,000 apps instead of 1,000 developers going to be building 10,000 apps on your ecosystem without your team creating everything. Many ecosystems still chase the wrong KPIs, because to build a hype and also drive the token value of the token, often you focus on Discord signups, Twitter retweets, Twitter replies with the bots, one-time hackathon submissions, or all little things that easier to quantify, but not necessarily driving the value. So those are some KPIs that are short-lived. I'm not saying that it's useless, but if you are building your strategy just for the sake of the number, it disturbs you. So let's think about that. How many people come to your dev docs, and how long are they staying? If they stay in your dev docs 20 minutes, is it great or not? If they are looking for some short answer, come, but they couldn't find the information and staying 20 minutes, that's actually really bad. But if you have a tutorial-like information on your dev docs and they stay 20 minutes and building something, that's great. So if you are focusing on some vanity metrics without thinking through, then we often ending up the situation that, we had 10,000 people doing X and Y, such as the wallet creation. A lot of people are very obsessed with the wallet creation, but if you want 10,000 wallets on your network, I can do it by myself. But that's what we don't want, right? So that's the reason why we need to a little bit think through what kind of metrics we need to check and why, and don't make them as a target, but it should help us to see retrospectively how healthy the protocol is. We need to focus on the retention, ongoing contributions, actual engagement. It's not a rocket science, all of you may agree, but of course it's very difficult to measure properly how it is, and often we have a distracted focus there. And developer loyalty takes time. It's built on value. It can't be bought. So often you may think that we have X much of funding when people are building. So there's a lot of a nuance around that, even though a lot of protocols with a big funding are fighting for onboarding developers. So think about your relationship with developers as dating. So often we are very rushing into this relationship that developers who try your tech need to stay forever. How many of you fall in love with your partner at first date and decide to marry? Anybody, like in day one, you knew that you're gonna marry, and then next day you jump into the marriage? Oh, there's one guy. Okay. Then he is the one. If you're protocol, you need to aim him. He gonna like directly jump into your ecosystem. So it's like a non-zero chance, but like let's be realistic. If you're thinking that you provide like one nice experience to developers and thinking that they're gonna stay in your ecosystem building, that's a little bit crazy idea. Like you are very underestimating like how people are making a decision. This honeymoon phase of like a very interesting tech, like just start and can fade away very easily with a few frustrations. Maybe they have questions, they contact your DevRel team. Your DevRel team are completely overwhelmed. Then they don't get an answer, they move on. Like they're like a busy developers, maybe they work in big IT companies already. They have like 3 hours on the weekend, they want to work on side projects. 2.5 hours, they were struggling, they're like, there's no documentation and nobody answered me on Discord. They will leave because it's not useful for them anymore. So like those like little attentions, like when you want to capture them, you need to think about what kind of like long-term strategy we need to build and building a playground for them, either by you or with your community like effort. It can be, that's the reason why there's a lot of like education opportunities that they can come and learn, they can build something and compete, not necessarily to make every idea into a startup, but because it's the fun part that developers can come and learn and build something. So we need to think long term to give all this kind of like a support and having shared wins. So not only the ecosystem perspective, seeing as number that like it's 1,000 developers, but rather thinking about how those 1,000 developers are winning in your ecosystem. If you don't think about that, what their future step gonna be in your ecosystem, you will lose them very, very soon. You might be upset they are not lawyer, but why they should be, you don't think about their future. So in the end, you need to build a partnership with developers. It's not transactional relationship. If you start very transactional, this relationship will continue transactional, and then you will be very disappointed in the end of this game. So there's a few myths, like we are, like 1 second. Okay, there's like a few myths, like we are always like tackling. So often we believe that there's a one playbook that everyone can follow. If you think about like what ecosystem has the most like vivid dev community recently, you may think about like 1-2 protocol in your head, right? Like maybe one in EVM, maybe non-EVM. There's a few, it comes to your mind. And often what you do is like, I want to have exactly copy-paste like strategy, what they did 3 years ago with a complete different market condition, complete different community vibe, and then you realize it just doesn't work for you. So that's the reason why like, you need to think about stage of your project, what kind of developers coming, what is the product of yours. This is like something you need to retarget all the time, and that's the reason why it's very difficult to play. And ecosystem KPI and developer KPI. So I'm not saying the whole organization need to focus on developer KPI. You're gonna have a team focus on your own product and ecosystem as well. But you also need the people, often it's a DevRel in your team, thinking about the perspective from developers, what kind of success like they can get out of this like interaction with your ecosystem. So one thing is like the other things about like one interaction, like we already talked about it before, but one thing is like hype marketing can like replace the actual value. That's the often misconception that like we have a huge narrative cycle in crypto, which is true, but it fades away. So while you use that momentum, if you don't build real value, they will not come back. So that when your protocol is just like making your strategy around the narrative, when narrative is gone, like you continuously like need to chase that, but it doesn't come. And you don't need to write every narrative. But if you have like a fundamental value, you are providing a value to developer. Many narratives are plausible. If it's something applicable to you, you can then use that to create the momentum, create like a really fun vibe in the community while creating the value. So like having very void value while just like following the hype, they're going to be a very, very like sad strategy. Like in 12 months, you realize that like nobody around there in long term. And also often think you want everyone should stay in your ecosystem and become founders. It's very unrealistic. Someone needs to be employed in your ecosystem as well. So the thing is, like, if you're thinking there was 10 amazing developers in your ecosystem become a company, right? they will need someone to build together. But then you are making another like dev initiatives. It can be hackathon, it can be some boot camps, it can be like a huge conference, and you expect all of them becoming a founder. Who's gonna be working together with them? So like we sometimes have like this unrealistic wishes that every hackathon winners become founder and fundraise. And then every hackathon like winner is gonna be like continuously staying in your ecosystem with a one-time interaction. And then you got gutted because they don't. Just we are wishing very unrealistic things, and it's not healthy for your ecosystem either. So developers come with various motivations, and ecosystem also go through different stages. If you see very, very good developer who just had who are like a weekend hobbyist coming to your ecosystem, building something cool, but they have zero intention to stay, use them. They should be your extended developer arm. They're going to be create the demo for you. They inspire others. They make some open source project the others can pick up and building something further. You shouldn't think that, oh my God, they are pirates. They are just draining our money. Look, no, like they are the one who actually work for you over the weekend as a freelancer, creating a demo for you. If someone comes for like those kind of short or like part-time like attention span on your ecosystem, instead of like reject them, use them for momentum, while you're gonna have a few people stay long time as a rock star. So like this is like again like often so they're like when we don't like prioritize the developer outcomes, but like focus on ecosystem optics, in the long term we lose them. There's like a few cases I can like explain here. One is like don't chase 1,000 developers if you're not ready to serve 100 developers. Sometimes like we are thinking about like thousands of developers are really small, but if you see the electric capital report like every like year, we have like less than 10,000 developers in our ecosystem who is full-time, and the definition of full-time here is 20 hours a week. So we don't have that many full-time developers in the whole ecosystem as a whole blockchain, not just Ethereum, not just like Bitcoin, Solana, like as a whole. And then we think that we can onboard 1,000 developers with some 2 interactions, and they're going to stay in your ecosystem working full-time. Do you have 1,000 jobs in your ecosystem? No. They need to make a living. So do you have like 1,000 activities they can do? No. You actually don't want 1,000 developers come to your ecosystem with a full engagement at once. They're gonna come in different stage. Some become founder. They're gonna create job in your ecosystem. Give them funding, make them create the job for others. Some developers gonna come just for fun, but they create the momentum because communities that keep talking about it, they're asking technical questions. Maybe in 4 weeks, their attention span is over, they're gonna leave. It's fine, they serve the great purpose to onboard others and being a fun person to work with. So the thing is like, let's not focus on like big numbers because that's great in optics. You actually cannot digest them. Let's start small. And then let's enable these different types of contributors, short-term, long-term, part-time, all those contributors coming. Instead of complaining or like blaming that they are leaving so soon, we need to extract the value from them in different way. And of course, providing the value. So short-term contributors, they're also great. Long-term contributors, they're also great, but we often like a little bit like discriminate them. And like framing the short-term ones are like pirates or like hunters or like they're greedy ones. But also don't forget, they are the one who create the like best momentum in early stage. They're the nosy one. They are the one who want to learn like 100 different technology while nobody is asking for because they just want. Use them as a momentum. Building something fundamentals for long-term builders who are coming to your ecosystem. And also, like, so there's a way, like, asking them to create the demos, keep providing your learning content, some community engagement. So you can see that, like, a lot of different this conference, or like some like saloon, or like you make this like, what is there, like a local communities making a little events, meetups. Or like a developer, like hackathons, or like small like workshop series. Those are all made for this. They're not necessarily each going to be turning people into the founder or something like really like substantial. Rather, providing a playground they can continue coming, recruit their partners, enjoying like their conversation, and stick around to the ecosystem. So this is like something like in general, what kind of things we can do. While like yeah, there's like another thing, like one thing I wanted to bring it up is Now, especially if you're working on the protocol side, like once when we are compiling for those short-term, or like some hackers or developers coming to ecosystem and living, we need to remind ourselves we are the one who designed that reward. We are the one who designed that rule, not the developers. If they're gaming the system, we need to build a better system. So airdrop, grant, everything is same. So like last time in ETH Denver, I was talking about more diving into the grant ecosystem, that if you are, depending on what kind of activity you are aiming, so like a long-term activity, short-term activity, if you want them to build a specific feature for your protocol, or if they want them to build a business on your protocol, we need to design the grant program or airdrops or this reward program more smart, like retrospectively, proactively, everything has its like pros and cons. So instead of like blaming people who are gaming the system what we built, we need to build our system better so that it can be a fun game for everyone, so that you don't feel like you are getting drained. So in the end, like what I wanted to say is like a whole this dev ecosystem strategy is mainly about the spirit, not the script. It's not something we can set like 20 rules and just blindly following, but we need to understand that what kind of motivation developer has, what stage of your product are, and then what types of developer you need. Like maybe in the beginning, like a lot of developers will not game and battle on your platform, so you need to type someone who's gonna fall in love with you in first date and gonna stick to it. It's a little bit irrational like love, right? I think all of you, because you're very maybe like tech savvy, you have that experience that some phone, some device, or some software nobody likes, but you wanted to really try. Those type of people you will need it in early stage. But if you're working on different stage for mass adoption, at a certain point, those like tech-savvy users who were like a marquee users in the beginning may not be the main drive over your ecosystem growth, but you don't want to lose them. Then you need to have like different two-track strategies. So in the end, there's no one template that you can just follow and apply to every developer in your ecosystem and in every stage. But there are some principles you can follow. So that's something I wanted to emphasize. And another thing is like think like a partner, not a platform. So like don't see them as a number and think that once they are in, they're gonna just be there. But you need to think about as a partner, especially in early stage, till certain level, you need to think about what is the realistic number of developers, founders you can take care of. If your target is 200 to 300, just remember that your team must be able to answer them when they message you, so that you need to help them. So be realistic, starting with the 5 teams, 10, maybe 20, and then make them succeed in your ecosystem, make them make money, make them have a great product they're proud of, make them feel like they're changing the world. So that's the important part, that you can have a long-term loyalty instead of giving a 20K funding and they left our ecosystem after 3 months because I didn't answer them. I thought they're just going to be continuously building. How they can live? Like they're going to leave. If they come for money, they will leave for money. But if they come for something else, they're going to stay. And what value you can provide, that's important. So I can see that these days protocols start to a little bit offering different types of help, like marketing support, hiring support, legal support. And this is important because once a founder is looking for help, 10K is in the end, it's peanut. You cannot do anything with your startup. I mean, it's not a small money, but you will not have a long runway with that money. But what they need is actual support to make their project successful. So this ecosystem success means, in the end, you need to enable developer success at scale, because at a certain point, you don't want to focus on just 20 developers, but the whole group. And the great ecosystem evolve based on how developers are using them. And in the end, to make the ecosystem successful, don't focus on just ecosystem KPI. We need to build a great relationship, and that's the reason why you will see that some developers are following certain DevRels to ecosystem, unless tech stack is completely different, because they know that they can actually get support from them. So I'm not saying we need to blindly focusing on DevRel only. But in your unit, if you are working on dev strategy, let's make sure that we are not focusing on vanity metrics and then try to extract the optic value from the developers, but providing a value to them so that they can succeed. So my last thing I like to always tell is, if you are investing in the success of developers, they will invest in your success as well. But if you want to extract the value out of them for your own success, like they will not stay. So it sounds like perhaps like a little bit, like a same thing in the end, but it's all about the mindset and spirit. So once when your ecosystem give the developers the feeling that they feel supported and you really care about their success, that's the way to make your ecosystem bigger. Thank you.
We have a few minutes for Q&A, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to go ahead.
Thanks, hi, interesting talk. I guess I have two questions, but they're kind of related. So what do you think is the best way to get feedback? Like how to interact or communicate with the developers in the ecosystem, and connected to that, like what is like their request, like let's say like product feature request, like how it should be like.
I actually couldn't hear your question really well.
So yeah, sorry. So the first question was like, what is the best way to communicate with the ecosystem developers, and connected to that, how they should be able to kind of like influence the product feature decisions. So like core developments, like they say, oh, it would be nice to have this feature for the projects. Like how you can ensure that they are also prioritized, but you're not like completely, like throughout your original product. Priorities.
So like first, like how would you communicate with your ecosystem developer? Like depending on like again your stage, but like let's assume that like you are like a small project and now starting to building. Like is your assumption is you already have a developer, or you need to look for a developer? Do you already have a developer and you want to be in contact, or like you don't have a developer and you want to create developer group? What is the case? Yeah, because the thing is like we often want to achieve everything at the same time, but this can be very different strategies. So let's say if you need to like create a group of developers who are interested in your product in the beginning, then like you're gonna perhaps like look for all the opportunity where you can get an exposure, right? And that's the reason why a lot of like protocols are even looking for partnership. But instead of like blind partnership, getting your logo somewhere, which perhaps don't do anything too much, but like what you need to do often, as my perspective from education community, is like providing education to developers, try to make them like use your product for fun and get some feedback and then be in touch. If it's just more intangible enough, like in crypto, I see that a lot of developers in touch with other like, engineers in the ecosystem through Discord forum, or like even Telegram, jump on a call. So that like if it's something you can handle, you will provide very hands-on support. And the other way is like providing like continuous some like let's say workshop series, or like people make like AMAs with a clear goal is important. So like if your goal is like we already have 20 developers in our ecosystem and we want to really take care of them, maybe you want to have a like weekly office hour, we actually gonna maybe schedule one-on-ones, maybe every 4 weeks, and asking them what kind of progress they're making. You may create specific bounty or grant for them that it's small enough so that you can explore and making experiments, not too huge, but they have incentives to work with you. So you kind of reward them, but play well so that it doesn't become, it doesn't ruin the relationship. One fun example I really like to use is there was a kindergarten, and then a lot of parents who are working like very hard, they often went to kindergarten too late to pick up their kids. So kindergarten was like thinking, how can we make these parents come earlier? Because teachers need to wait. So in the beginning, like they were thinking, maybe we introduce the fine. So if you come late, I will ask you to pay the penalty. So they thought if they do that, people will come early because they don't want to pay penalty. But what happened? Everyone prefers to pay more and don't come. So that they completely ruined this incentive system. So once they realized that it actually makes parents less guilty because now they can pay, before that they were feeling very sorry. And then they removed the system, they couldn't change back. So like, of course, in the beginning, you are a little bit worried about how this incentive plays out. So don't overpay. Try to build a relationship. If it's a small group, give your time. Spend money is much easier than spending time, so you often want to do that, but you need to spend time with them.
Any more questions?
Thank you. From your experience, how are the devs currently choosing which ecosystem to join? Because from my experience working with startups and talking to some devs, ultimately, when they have enough confidence that they're going to build their product and their product would be successful, they need the distribution. And they're like looking, do you think there's still like tech-wise and support-wise enough difference between the ecosystems or between the chains that someone is choosing just for the tech, or do they kind of like need to look forward to partnerships, to distribution, to actual users, not just within the dev community?
So I think distribution really matters. And then in the beginning, like a lot of devs said that we are choosing this for the tech, but I think a lot of founders actually in the end not choosing a certain ecosystem purely because of the tech. Maybe only very first users who are interested in like reading their consensus or like how they design the protocol, like sequencers, provers, but let's be honest, a lot of like smart contract developers going to be building when it's comfortable and nice, but distribution matters. But how distribution works? Now our distribution is very tied into tokens, so that many people are looking for people who are like actively trading that token, because that token is serving as a treasury, but also as the gas of users, right? So now, like, it's quite common that people are going to look for, oh, I want to see that I have the like highest transaction volume ecosystem because it means that there's a lot of users. It's partially true, but two things we need to think about is like now chain abstraction coming, that like more and more developers can build like a multi-chain app or like a chain agnostic app easier. Which means that at a certain point for developers, where the volume is, where the token is, doesn't matter because they can handle back and users don't care. So you need some chain giving you a very good dev experience. It means that like a good docs, good tooling, and then like a answering question very quickly. That's very important because I like to try some new tools, and I often even like sending a feature request. And if some like team come back for that, like you really like them and you want to stick to it, so that's the important part. So chain abstraction is like not perhaps as like prominent yet, but when it gets like more and more, my belief is like where the token is perhaps become less like important, but rather like who give the best experience to developers and support can be more successful protocol that people can build an app on top of it. And then like another way of distribution is like for example, Base is really trying hard, right? Like Base is making a great marketing. So while I don't think necessarily like Base is the best chain, but they are very interesting because not that they are technically superior to others. I don't think like that, but they are doing a great job that people who may build on top of that may get a exposure. And that feeling and belief bring people. Or like Solana, like having a very like dense community. And then that's the reason why like they feel like when I build something, they're like tacky, crazy people in our ecosystem may use our app. But how long it's gonna go, it's all about like distribution matters most, but how distribution is working. Now it looks like token incentives, but I believe that they're gonna change.
Thank you. That's about it. That was a wonderful conversation.